All right, welcome back to Edgework on the Hammer Betting Network, the live daily NHL show Monday through Friday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on Twitter at Edgework Show or on YouTube at Edgework, the YouTube channel. I would recommend going over to YouTube and clicking subscribe, hitting like on this stream, and turning on those notifications so you get notified every time we go live Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. If not, to get notified for the show going live, but if we are in the final days of Twitter here at a little bit of a gong show. Twitter could potentially be going down. Andy barely got across the border to come back from his trip from Mexico. So it's a little bit of a gong show to start the day here on Edgework.
Thanks, Elon.
Andy's the first guy to come back from Mexico with less than a tan of what he left with, basically.
Dude, I'm like at least.
Rob, are you in a position to say that?
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
my
what the hell?
I'm not an expert in broadcasting. My lighting is terrible here, so it's always impossible. But I think I do have like I've got rid of the pasty white skin. I've got like slight tan going,
Yeah.
No, I'm at least like 5 or 6 shades darker. So get out of here with that. I definitely use sunblock, Rob. I'm a fair-skinned man. I don't want to get that melanoma, right? So
yeah,
I gotta
listen. It's serious, man. You got to protect the skin when you're out there.
All right, before we get into anything serious regarding hockey today, Andy, I did mention you went to Mexico. I saw you went to Sportsbook and placed a bet. I need to know what happened with that. You got gouged on the taxes on that. What happened?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I forgot about that experience because it was such a waste of time. But I just wanted to go check it out. I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. I was lucky that there was a gentleman there, a fellow gambler, that kind of helped me out a little bit because the guy behind the counter, Fernando, he didn't really know what I was saying. But it was there's definitely sports betting offerings there. It's pretty minimal. You're talking about NFL, you're talking about, the main markets, and then, you've got your quarter markets and your half markets, and that's pretty much it. There was no anytime touchdown scorers or in the NHL, any anytime goal scorers or anything like that. Just sides and totals and whatnot. But the big, pretty high limits, pretty terrible. I don't know if I misunderstood the guy, or what, but I believe he was telling me that I couldn't bet any more than 150 US on the hockey side. So I just put together a little 2-teamer just to kind of get a ticket and show people what it was all about. But yeah, you've got to give back 10% of your winnings on your bets there. And I guess it varies. There's another place more in the downtown center of Playa del Carmen that is only 5%. But I mean, it's you should probably just take time off betting on sports when you're in Mexico, I guess.
Is that because you weren't local, or does everybody have to give back that?
No, it's everybody. Yeah, it's everybody. Like the guy I was there talking to, he was local, and he also told me, like, you don't want to win more than 10,000 pesos or 9,999 pesos because the paperwork is pretty ridiculous and it's kind of hard to get your money, I guess. So. I don't know. It's there, but it's not worth a fuck.
So that's $500 US basically.
Yeah. It's pretty lousy.
Did
Fair
you have
enough.
to walk? So we'll move on to hockey in a second. I'm just very curious. I haven't been to a Mexican sports book. I've been to some in Costa Rica. Did you have to walk all the way through like a long casino to get to the sports book?
It was a pretty small casino, but yeah, I just walked in. Went through they had a security guard, metal detectors, all that stuff. Had to leave my bag in a locker. And then I just walked through a little casino, mostly slots. I think there was some table games there. And then the sports book was actually like a big, probably a third of the casino. It was a pretty small place, but yeah, I guess there's about 3 or 4 places you can place bets in that part of Mexico in Playa del Carmen there. And it kind of varies, but none of the offerings are very good.
Yeah, I know that, when me and the wife go to Mexico, we go off resort, we do some ATVing, some snorkeling, scuba diving, Andy's going to the local sports books.
It was 2 hours. It was I was 15 minutes away from town. Took a little trip in, Content, man. Content, Rob. You gotta,
Well, if you're
My
looking
best
for more of Rob's
D.
content and potentially TikTok dances of Rob, if you saw his Halloween costume, I don't
Oh
know
my
if anyone
God.
saw that. Rob offered up that he might be doing TikTok dances in the futures and touting pics and stuff. So if you're looking for that, head on over to his Twitter while it still exists. You can follow Rob at Rob Pizzola on Twitter for more of his NFL content and upcoming soccer content for the World Cup on the Hammer Betting Network. You can find that all on Hammer HQ Twitter account or on thehammer.bet. And for more of Andy's hockey content as opposed to just his Mexican gambling stories, you can find Andy on VSiN, where you can get access to Andy's daily NHL betting market report with VSiN's Pro subscription. So make sure to check that out. If you guys are looking for sad Leafs fans who are clamoring for just low-end defensive trades, you can find my stuff on my YouTube channel at Leafs Digest, but that's where you can look for that kind of content. Getting into yesterday's action, let's start with the Florida Panthers. They lose 6-4 to the Dallas Stars last night, and I mean, Rob was the one who mentioned it, but this is looking more and more desperate for the Florida Panthers with their in terms of how much they're paying Bobrovsky in net, $10 million until 2026. In the summer, it was reported that Kyprios had reported that the Florida Panthers would be willing to eat up to 50% of Bobrovsky's salary if they were to trade him. Unknown if that still stands for them, but at this point, they might be looking to do anything and everything they can to get him out of Florida. Currently, last night at least, he goes in, gives up 4 goals on 11 shots, gets yanked, and Spencer Knight goes in. Rob, when you're looking at this contract for Sergei Bobrovsky, how much he's getting paid and how bad he's been playing, and then add on the fact that Spencer Knight is sitting there in the wings playing as well as he has been in relief of Bobrovsky or just in backup situations, whatever it may be, how bad do you think Florida feels about the fact that they have this Bobrovsky contract looming over them right now?
Well, obviously sucks for them, and they're probably going to give Bobrovsky the right to, just try to find his form again. You would be stupid not to, I guess, at the amount that they're paying him. And they're not really in danger of every team, I guess, is technically in danger of missing the playoffs at some point, but they're right in the mix right now in the Eastern Conference. It's not like they can't split starts or go something like 60-40 Bobrovsky and get away with it for a little while longer. But it's pretty evident to me, there's been certain goalies over the years where you'll watch them and you're like, he's washed type of situation. The most memorable one for me was Pekka Rinne for a few years, where he's coming off his hip surgery and you're like, this guy cannot move, side to side, post to post. It's horrible. And Bobrovsky this year, he just doesn't pass the sniff test to me. I mean, doesn't pass the analytical test. It's not terrible. Minus 2.08 goal saved above expected in his 10 games played. That's at all strengths, according to Evolving Hockey. But Spencer Knight has been good. He's been almost 4 goal save above expected, in 8 games played this season. So I don't know, they're going to get to a point at some point in the season where I think it's likely that they're going to have to make a decision and kind of just flip this around completely. But it's like one of those where, probably when I first started betting hockey seriously 5-6 years ago, Andy would have been around the same time, there'd be most instances where they'd go to the backup and the backup was clearly a downgrade. I think nowadays in the NHL, there's a lot of cases where teams end up going to the backup and I actually increase their win probability. So part of that is due to the contract situations in real life. And I think that's definitely one here, but Florida with Bobrovsky, in my opinion, is a big time fade moving forwards.
Yeah, it's a tough spot with like you said, they're probably better off just playing him and hoping that he kind of finds his form again, which kind of seems unlikely at this point. But it's it's tough because it's like it's like a sunk cost, but you can't really do anything about it. You're saddled with that, so you've kind of got to work with it and try to figure it out. Hopefully, because there aren't that many solutions. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, like he was hung out to dry a bit. Obviously, it was an incredible start to that game. I'm on the Stars. I kind of regretted it after the Scott Wedgwood announcement, hoping it was Jake Ottinger, but really it was Scott Wedgwood that like kept the Stars in that game until he got hurt, and Jake Ottinger came in cold, and the Stars almost blew the lead. But you look, Bobrovsky, all of the goals were scored like right on the doorstep. He was hung out to dry on shorthanded breakaways and whatnot. The Panthers dominated the first 5 minutes of that game, and Dallas scores a shorthanded goal on their first shot of the game. It was great for me, but definitely a big letdown for the Panthers there on the power play. But like I said, they're allowing all these chances right on the doorstep. But then you've got Scott Wedgwood on the other end making fantastic saves. He made the save of the game and threw his back out, for God's sakes.
Yep.
And so it's tough to kind of feel sympathetic for the Panthers and Sergei Bobrovsky. But yeah, like intuitively, I haven't looked at things yet, but just kind of going off gut feel. I know you want to talk about the Flames a little bit, but like heading into Saturday, you look at where Calgary was going into Tampa Bay on Thursday. They had 2 days off. Who knows what they got up to over those 2 days, right? Before that game. With the game on Saturday, it's a matinee. I believe it's a 2 p.m. Mountain Time start, so 4 p.m. Eastern Time. There's not enough time to mess around. I suspect just, kind of like just this is my feeling on things. The Flames will be up for that game. It's Huberdeau's return. Of course, the Panthers are going to be up for it too, but just on my gut, I think this is a good spot coming up here on Saturday for the Flames against the Panthers. But obviously, we might see Spencer Knight in goal and not Sergei Bobrovsky.
Yeah, and I guess kind of in terms of the goalie situation, Rob's talking about the fact that we're in a time where the backup isn't necessarily a downgrade in all situations. You can kind of go into a lot of teams looking at their goalie setups, how they run it. It's a tandem situation more often than not, where they're looking at a guy to go 55-45 or the 60-40, where it's not necessarily the big workload for one guy anymore, and it's kind of, hey, prove yourself and let's see what you can do. If you can be the guy come playoff time, or if you can go on the run, it's way more spread out. And then we also saw it in the NBA where it just became load management. It's like, why would we run this goaltender into the ground if we're going to need him come playoff time? But you're talking about the Calgary Flames, and specifically in this matchup against the Panthers, unknown who will be in net for the Panthers at that point, but Jacob Markstrom hasn't been necessarily great for the Flames to start this season so far. I talked with So Money about it on yesterday's show, but everyone was kind of panicking about the Flames early on, and it was kind of like, hey, let's pump the brakes here, because as good as that team is on paper, you do have to remember at some point, like, these guys are human, and it does take a little bit of a adjustment period to get used to playing with each other, new systems, new chemistry, line mates, all that kind of stuff. The Flames right now currently sitting at, I believe it was plus 450 consensus to win the Pacific. Rob, you think this might be a good bet for this Flames team as they start to build some chemistry? If Markstrom can start to put things together and get back on a roll and get back to the goaltender, the caliber of goaltender that he is known to be and that the Flames signed him for, plus 450 to win the Pacific, is that potentially a good bet on the Flames right now?
I think it is. Now, obviously, Vegas has been a machine so far, but there's a couple things that stand out to me with Calgary so far this season. One of them you mentioned is the goaltending. They actually have the third worst save percentage in the entire league this season. The only two teams that have been worse, cumulative team save percentage, have been the San Jose Sharks and the Buffalo Sabres. And then I look at teams, and one thing I really like to look at is share of power play time, and the Flames are just not getting it right now. I don't know if that's going to continue going forwards, but relative to last year, their power play time is way down relative to what we would expect. They do have guys there that typically draw a lot of penalties as well. So I think going forwards, they're probably a team that's a buy on. And honestly, this is where it gets dangerous if you actually watch hockey, because I've watched a lot of the Flames this year and just watch them dominate ozone time and possession and generate chances, and then puck goes down the other end and the team scores a weak one. And that's kind of been the case for them. They've had a bit of a stinker last night in Tampa Bay. Don't want to give them too much credit. There were long spells in that game where they were dominant, but overall was pretty even game altogether. But I do think, like, I love the Flames roster on paper. If they get back to above average goaltending, they're going to be a machine. They're going to go on some sort of long winning streak. So they're priced like double what they were heading into the year at this point now. I think it's a good time to buy at plus 450.
Yeah, I look at Markstrom, and like, he was one of the goaltenders heading into the season. Obviously, he was great last year, the regular season, not great in the playoffs. And I look at his workload, and he's just one of the guys that, like you were talking about, Zach, some of these guys do get run into the ground still, and Jacob Markstrom is one of them. And he's played a lot of games, so that's a big concern. Is that going to maybe have an impact on him? We've seen it happen to guys in the past. You think, a goaltender like Braden Holtby, he used to get run pretty hard in Washington, and things came down, crashing down for him eventually. But I look at Calgary, and like, I do see what Rob sees in terms of, they are dominating for long stretches. But the one thing that stands out to me is, like, some of these games here, just that even strength. You look against Tampa Bay, they owned 60% of the shot attempts. They finished with a 40% expected goal share. Winnipeg, they a little over 53% of the shot attempts, 40% expected goal share. Boston, 65% of the shot attempts, 48% of the expected goals. It's, and there's a lot of games that kind of stand out like that. Season where Calgary is carrying the play, dominating possession, but not necessarily doing so in an optimal way. So I'm a little bit concerned about them. I don't know if they're as good as they were last year in that respect, but I still do love this team on paper, and I could very easily see them turning it around really quick and going on a run in the opposite way. Just like they went on a pretty bad run recently.
All right, talking about teams that could continue trends or things that could come crashing down, the New Jersey Devils right now continue their win streak, their 11th straight win with a win over the Toronto Maple Leafs last night. Watching that game, it kind of just felt the whole time, it's like, I know it's a very generic thing to say, or it's like an easy thing to say, but it's like that team just looks like they want to win night in, night out. There's obviously a lot of analytics that can kind of go alongside with what they're doing to back up the fact that they've been winning these games and the fact that they've deserved to win a lot of these games. But I mean, just point blank watching them, it's like that team looks like they want to win, and they get down in situations, but at no point do they ever look like they're out of it. This New Jersey team, even just some of the base stats, like second in goals, second in shots on goal, third in goals against, first in shots on goal, relying on Vanacek right now. The guy's 7-1, 2.1 AGA and a 915 save percentage. Lindy Ruff leads the Jack Adams coaching candidacy. He's got the best odds to win it right now. Like, yes. The Devils fans are in Prudential Center chanting "Sorry, Lindy," and yeah, and now
as
the
if he
Devils
has anything to do with this right now. Like, he's just letting those guys play.
And now the Devils are plus 140. Yeah, like how. What do you make of this Devils team, what they've done so far this season? Because yes, Lindy Ruff does lead the Jack Adams race to win it right now. He's odds-on favorite to do so. But like, as Jack Hughes said himself, they're on a heater right now. Like, you're just on a heater and you let things roll. Is this Devils team legit? Is this something that they're going to, obviously not at this pace, but is this something they're going to continue to do for the rest of the season with the success that they're having right now?
I don't see why not, personally. They have tons of team speed. Like, watch any Devils game and it's very noticeable how much faster they are than everyone else. And that's not something that other teams can really just adjust to in the modern NHL. Like, it's not like this is the 1990s where you can just grab players by the jersey and slow them down and, mitigate some of that speed. It's a much more wide open game where those penalties are called, those infractions are called. So I think the market has been way too slow to react to the Devils. Honestly, I've played on the Devils more than any other team this year, even at some really big favorite prices. And some people have been saying, well, it's the Devils. Like, you trust them in that role? I mean, forget what you knew about this franchise beforehand, because it's just different. Like, they're leading the league in expected goal share at even strength right now. They are, frankly, like as much as Toronto sports media and the fans will, are down on the team, the Leafs are a very good team, regardless, or at least a top 10 team in the league. And New Jersey kind of handed it to them last night. Like, they were clearly faster. They were the better team on the ice. So looking at a site that I typically look at for, market power rankings, which is Unpredictable, by the way, I should promo the site. They have the Devils at 10th right now. The Devils are not the 10th best team in hockey. They are much higher than that. I'd be floored if they're not a top 5 team in hockey by the end of the year, just based off of what we've seen so far. Now, obviously, injuries can change that. There's a lot that can go into it, but I don't see a lot of downside for this team unless they suffer some significant injuries. And right now, this team's humming. They're going to keep winning games because they're just that much faster than everyone else, and they can play that much better at even strength than everyone else.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm being a little attacked here right now. No, I'm just joking. But like, just the way that I do things, especially early in the season, this is like the perfect storm of bad things for me when it comes to, trying to kind of catch up on a team. And I think I'm getting there. Like yesterday, I saw some small value on them versus Toronto, not enough to really bet on them. But I guess I'm getting there, right? So the thing that I have a hard time, or have had a hard time with, is just, it's, they had a run at the start of the season. Their first 10 games were against, the majority, like 7 out of their first 10 games were against some of the worst teams in the league. And it was really, kind of, obviously they're just dominating those teams, but we've seen this kind of fall apart in the past. And then you hadn't really been able to get a good look at the team, because they play, a few games against some of the bottom teams in the league. Then they play a team like Colorado, and then a few more games against some kind of basement teams. And then, they get a string of games against Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto, but still in the mix there, Ottawa, Arizona, Montreal. And it's been tough, but I have to agree with what Rob says. The market is definitely, has been too slow to catch up on the Devils. And I mean, they've won 11, 12 in a row now. 11, so, yeah. So whoever was caught up on them is doing pretty good right now. So.
Yeah. All right, last thing before we get into tonight's game here, the Vancouver Canucks taking on the LA Kings. Calder Trophy race right now. The leader, the odds-on favorite to win by consensus, is Matty Beniers plus 500, but tailing just behind him, Logan Thompson plus 650. The last goaltender to win the Calder, as Rob and I had talked about prior to, was Steve Mason. Is there any shot that Logan Thompson could potentially win this Calder Trophy with the Vegas Golden Knights this year? I mean, the guy was playing CIS hockey 2 years ago in the COVID year. Goes to the ECHL, goes to the AHL, wins the goalie of the year there. Now here he is on an incredible run, gets another win last night. 25 saves on 26 shots, a .962 save percentage. He's been absolutely lights out. And then when Vegas had lost Robin Lehner in the summer, and looking at him being out all year, it was kind of, what are the Knights going to be without him? Logan Thompson has stepped in and filled that void. Is there any shot that this guy could win the Calder Trophy?
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned it, Zach. Like, historically speaking, we look at the last 20 years, it's been mostly players that win the Calder. But when you look at the players who've won the Calder up and down the list, for the most part, these guys have turned into superstars. The goalies that have won: Steve Mason, Andrew Raycroft, Evgeny Nabokov back in 2001. Personally, I think that Logan Thompson is very live, but I'd rather take a flyer on Stuart Skinner. And I know Stuart Skinner has been bet down quite a bit. Stuart Skinner was 50-1 to win the Calder last week. He's now pretty much 15-1 across the board. You can find some 20s, but Jack Campbell is awful. He has been for a long time now, dating back to mid last season. This is going to be, at some point, Skinner's time to run with the net and see what he can do. And he's performed pretty admirably. I think just based off of, like, awards are very narrative-y, right? Like, we all know this. At the end of the year, okay, Vegas might win the division. Logan Thompson might have a great record or whatever, but they kind of did it from start to finish. If the story is that Edmonton was struggling in net, they turned to Stuart Skinner, it turned around their season, he might have worse numbers, less wins, less everything than Logan Thompson, but still win the Calder because of the story side of things. So I think Skinner's a different bet, but honestly, I think both of those goalies are extremely live. I don't really think that there's a player that's separating themselves this year as someone who stands out as like, oh yeah, you need to be on this guy. Like I almost bet Owen Power a couple of weeks ago because he had 2 assists in one game. And I was like, this might be enough right now, like to put him, like that's the state of the Calder at this point. So I don't see why these goalies wouldn't be, have top 2 on the board with better odds, in my opinion. Andy, mute. Well, his brain's
it's
still
a
in
wide
Mexico.
Open race right now for the Calder Trophy, guys. No, yeah, it is really wide open though, and like I just have trouble looking at this market, like knowing that a guy like Shane Pinto was 40-1 a month ago, right? And somebody that was on my radar at that time, but obviously did not foresee this and wasn't quick enough to react. But so it's always a bitter pill to swallow. I know at this time last year, maybe a week earlier in the season, Moritz Seider was still 10-1, right? So there are still good bets out there. I'm really just kicking my ass though, thinking about last year when I bet Gabe Velarde at 15-1 prior to the start of the season. He breaks his ankle, and now look at him, right? Like
unreal.
He would have been in the mix last year. I had Zegras and Velarde at 15-1 each, and actually Zegras was about 12-1, but still, and then I ended up with Seider at 10-1 as well. But yeah, Velarde, man, he really would have made a dent in that Calder Trophy race last year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Andy, real quick, I want to get your thoughts on what you're seeing out of the Seattle Kraken right now. 3rd in the Pacific, 5th in the West, 9-5-3. This is a team that was awful last year. They end up in the lottery sweepstakes, take Shane Wright. Now looks like they're taking steps forward. They're in a position right now to be kind of in the playoffs, at least in the hunt down the stretch. What has changed with the Seattle Kraken team for them to have this kind of, I guess, success? I will say that lightly, but so far to start this season.
Well, they're scoring goals at an above average rate. They're the 11th best team on offense on even strength, and they're a top 10 team on defense too. And their goaltending is held up with Martin Jones. They allow about 2.5 expected goals per 60 at even strength, and they're only allowing closer to 2 goals per 60 minutes. So really good signs. I don't know how long they can hold up in that area, and of course you've got Grabauer kind of waiting in the wings there. I'm not sure what his exact status is right now, but I like Seattle on a game to game basis. I don't like them in the futures market because even though I think they've got a better than 50% chance of making the playoffs, I certainly wouldn't recommend betting them at even money to make the playoffs. Kind of goes against the way I do things. But like Rob said about the Flames, you've got the Golden Knights, the Flames, the Kings, and the Oilers. The Flames and the Oilers specifically that could really start to pick things up here down the stretch. So I do worry about Seattle's chances of staying in the mix, in the playoff mix. But I think, on a game-to-game basis, this team has to be taken more seriously than they are. I was pretty close on them to bet on them against the Rangers last night. Didn't end up pulling the trigger. Obviously, regretfully so. They got the win in overtime, but they continue to punch above their weight here, and they're still being slightly undervalued, I guess, and maybe they should be valued a little bit more by bettors on a day-to-day basis.
All right, let's get into tonight's game. We'll preview that. The Vancouver Canucks, LA Kings. Vancouver out west, 2nd in the Pacific right now, 11-7-1. They just came off a win, a 3-1 win over the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton on Wednesday off the back of a Trevor Moore hat trick. So cash those Trevor Moore hat trick tickets. I feel like we're going to get a message from Leach at some point here letting us know that he grabbed that. But facing off against the Canucks here tonight, 5-9-3 for the Canucks, 7th in the Pacific. They did just beat the Sabres 5-4. They might be fighting for Bruce Boudreau's life a little bit back there, but Thatcher Demko, 1-8-2, a 4.02 GAA, and an 877 save percentage. He's been terrible to start this season. I just, looking at the odds for tonight's game, both sides are minus money, Vancouver, LA. Rob, how do you evaluate this game here tonight?
I try to pretend it doesn't exist. That's my first thought. No, honestly, it's really tough with Demko right now because Demko, prior to this season, was a very good goaltender and pretty consistently good as well. And he's just completely fallen off a cliff. And, he's very likely going to start tonight. I'm pretty much right at market right now. So I make the Kings 50.5% to win this game. That would be assuming Jonathan Quick and Thatcher Demko. Now, if Calvin Peterson starts, Peterson's not a huge downgrade to Quick. Both have been slightly below average this year, but Peterson has been a little bit worse. It'll probably get me into range on Vancouver, and then I'm going to have to make a decision on whether or not I want to actually bet the Canucks, basically as a very, very small home underdog here. There have been better signs from the Canucks in recent weeks, but it's just challenging, and it might be one of those where I'm ready. I can fully admit where there's limitations in my numbers and where maybe I'm not capturing something that I should fully be capturing. I do feel like my particular model makes Demko a lot better than he actually is right now. With that said, I've had success betting that model for a long time, so sometimes you just got to trust in the numbers. It would be Vancouver or nothing for me, but I'd be hoping for a Calvin Peterson start. And honestly, maybe at this price, it would be just like a really, really small play, if anything. Like, I'd probably be getting invested with a half unit or something along those lines. Not sure if you have any other thoughts on this one, Andy.
Yeah, so I'm neutral on the game right now with the assumption that it's going to be Demko versus Cal Peterson. The Kings play the Kraken on Saturday. And, I guess let's assume that they save Jonathan Quick for the tougher team here. But if it isn't Peterson, if it's Quick versus Demko, I think that the game should be priced around minus 123 in favor of the Kings. So maybe a small bet there. But I think basically that's what you're kind of seeing with the market right now. Maybe a bit of an expectation out there that it will be Peterson minus 115. I think that's a fair price. But it's tough to talk about it, the Canucks in any sort of good way. They've won 2 games at home this season. Just not a good hockey team. I kind of struggle with the same things that Rob is struggling with when it comes to Thatcher Demko. He has struggled for stretches before, and he's gotten himself out of it. And I really think that he has gotten himself out of it. It's not like a team thing because it's a pretty bad defensive hockey team there. So it is kind of up to Demko to find his form again. But yeah, like looking at some action, I guess, tonight. You look at like a guy I just talked about, Gabe Vilardi. He's a popular bet right now. He's scoring a lot of goals for the Los Angeles Kings, but he's around plus 190 to score an anytime goal. Not really all that attractive. Then on the other side, you look at Andrei Kuzmenko. He leads the Canucks right now in high danger shot attempts per 60 minutes. It's not really all that close either. But he's definitely seems to be falling out of favor with Bruce Boudreau. He was scratched, I believe, in the last game, maybe not the last game, but the game before. And he's playing 12 minutes a night right now. So despite getting some time on the power play, the second power play unit, he's playing about half as much time as a guy that he's been on the line with, Ilya Mikheyev, who is the next best guy on the Canucks right now in terms of generating high danger shot attempts. So I like Mikheyev to score an anytime goal. I believe I saw him around at plus 290 consensus, I believe. Zach, can you help me out with this one?
Yeah, so right now I got plus 320 best price.
There you go.
That one is on a widely available book there. But yeah, you can see like plus 320, 310s. I'm looking at a 300 here. Like, you can find some stuff in that range.
Yeah,
he plays in all situations. He's a guy that could potentially score a shorthanded goal. Like there's that possibility is there. So I like Mikheyev as a flyer tonight to score an anytime goal at that price for sure.
I actually like that too. I was looking, we on the Friday episode of Edgework, we don't often get a lot of games because of the Saturday being such a huge slate. So I do dig into the props a little bit more. Mikheyev was the one guy that stood out to me where I thought his price was worth betting. And I agree with Andy. He plays in all situations as well. He gets a lot of ice time because he's so versatile as a player. And he's been a little bit unlucky. I mean, listen, he's been a little bit unlucky his entire career with his shooting. We all know he's not the greatest shooter. He's always going to perform.
At what point is it just not unlucky, though? At what point is it just like, this guy's just not scoring?
Very valid.
I don't know. I used to label Arturi Lehkonen as that guy too. And then all of a sudden he just figured it out and started to put it together a little bit with Colorado. So
fair enough. Mikheyev to me has like the Grabner curse, where he gets like 100 breakaways a season and just scores like 4 of them.
Yeah. Not a bet for tonight because obviously just the only one game. But I know there are people in here who are looking for bets, looking to get plus EV positions and stuff like that. Not every sportsbook is going to have futures markets up yet this morning. They typically will take maybe till later in the day, but there are a bunch of them up right now. And for the Vezina, you can still find Connor Hellebuck at like 12-1, 15-1. I think it's all marks to lose right now. And he's shifted all the way from 50-1 to like plus 300 over the course of the past couple weeks. But there's a lot of goalies that are priced in between Hellebuck and Allmark that I don't think are deserving of being there. One of them would be Shesterkin, for example.
Yeah.
Like that's pure reputation.
It's
even
crazy, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Shesterkin, like, why is he the favorite right now? Like, his ceiling is high, but it just doesn't make sense. I mean, with the variance year to year in goaltending, it's crazy that he's sitting at 4-1 right now at a lot of books.
I would argue that the Jets cannot make the playoffs unless Hellebuck performs at a near elite level, and if they do make the playoffs, it's very likely that he's going to win the Vezina. Unless Boston just has one of those seasons where they go like, 120 points, then it's done. And they're 15-2 right now, so it's entirely possible. But when we're looking at the goalie board for this year, I mean, Hellebuck is pretty much right at the top in every category that you would want to measure. He sits just behind Carter Hart in goal save above expected, just behind Allmark, barely goal saved above average. I just think that's a good bet, like a great value bet.
Yeah, and you look at Carter Hart, you can kind of take him out of the equation in a lot of ways because the Flyers are just not going to make the playoffs, and that's going to disqualify him pretty much from winning the Vezina. You don't see a goaltender win the Vezina without his team making the playoffs. So
the guy I'm worried about is Sorokin because he's played really well. The Islanders are playing better as of late, but Sorokin's now priced in the 5-1 range, right? And it's like, what's the big difference between Sorokin and Hellebuck that you would say that Sorokin's 5-1 and Hellebuck is 15? They're both
especially given the differences in where these teams are. Like, I mean, like the competition that Jets have to deal with compared to what the Islanders have to overcome to make the playoffs. It's not even close, right?
Agreed. And Hellebuck's a name, way more of a name than Sorokin is. Even though, like, to us, we all know who Sorokin is or whatever, but Hellebuck's been around a long time. He's been good for a long time. Again, this is a voted on award, right? If it comes down to those two guys, there is a voter bias as well. So I think that's a great bet. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see Hellebuck single digits next week. Instead of 12-1, 15-1, 20-1.
What is Rick Bonus? Just out of curiosity, what's Rick Bonus to win the Jack Adams? I'm guessing it's nowhere near what it should be, but
Jack Adams, Rick Bonus, he is the 4th highest,
I thought so.
And he has so he's roughly 10-1 to 12-1. Lindy Ruff is now the favorite, which makes a lot of sense.
Hellebuck's pretty much going to have to win the Vezina for Bonus to have a shot at winning the Jack Adams. So you might as well go with the safer bet.
But that's actually that's actually a really good point you bring up because a lot of times you should probably be looking at both those markets, right?
Yeah.
Vezina and
they're very closely linked.
Right, and just take the bigger price on
it's whichever. Like the goalie. Yeah, it's like the goalie award in a lot of ways. The Jack Adams, if you look at the save percentage of Jack Adams winners, it's always one of the top goaltenders, right? So
yeah. Yeah, but Lindy from Fire Lindy all the way to Jack Adams' favorite right now. What a ride it's been. Yeah.
Yeah, all the way to chanting "Sorry, Lindy," forgiving him for everything as they go on this 11-game heater, as Jack Hughes called it. But thank you guys for tuning in today to Edgework on the Hammer Betting Network, a live daily NHL show Monday through Friday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on Twitter at Edgework Show, and you can find all of our picks on BetStamp, the BetStamp app in the marketplace. You just search Edgework. You'll find it all there. You can follow and get notified in real time when we track bets on this show. So even if you miss a show, you can still find out what the bets are that we place. You can find out how they grade and how the show is performing over time. Thank you guys so much for tuning in here today. You make sure to subscribe on YouTube as well, because who knows what'll happen with Twitter over the next couple of days. Andy, Rob, thank you guys so much for your for the insights today.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be it, right? If this show doesn't exist, we're just never going to talk on any. I live on Twitter, right? So what am I going to do at this point?
Yeah. But just want to also let people know, if you want to find Rob's content, you can find it on the hammer.bet. And if you're looking for World Cup insights, you can find Rob, Alex Moretto, Jacob Gramenya, and a cast of other hosts joining in, rotating throughout the World Cup on the hammer.bet on the Fine Margins YouTube channel. So check it out there. That'll be starting live shows coming this Monday, so after this weekend. So subscribe there, subscribe to the Hammer HQ, subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if you're looking for more content from Andy MacNeil of VSiN, you can get access to Andy's daily NHL betting market report with VSiN's Pro subscription. So check that out. Follow Andy on Twitter for the final few days at Digital Gambler, and Rob at Rob Pizzola. Thank you guys so much for tuning in here today. We will see everyone on Monday for Monday's edition of Edgework. Good luck with your bets tonight.